The Carter estate stood like a monument to success, glass, steel, and silence. Perched on a hill overlooking the sprawling city below, it was a kind of place people slowed their cars to admire. But inside, it felt nothing like the glossy magazine spreads it often appeared in. For Daniel Carter, success had come fast and hard. At 33, he had built a tech empire that reshaped industries and made him a billionaire before most people figured out their life direction. But the cost of that success lived within the walls of his home, in the quiet halls, in the untouched piano in the living room, and most painfully, in the cries of his twin children. Ethan and Ella were just 4 years old, identical in appearance but different in temperament. What they shared, however, was a grief too large for their small bodies. Their mother had passed away a year earlier, and ever since, they had been inconsolable. No nanny lasted more than a week. They scream all night, one had said before quitting. They don't listen. They throw things. It's like they are angry at the world, said another. Daniel had tried everything. Child psychologists, specialized caregivers, even rearranging his work schedule. But nothing worked. The twins cried for their mother in ways that hollowed him out. And he, a man who could solve billion-dollar problems before breakfast, found himself completely powerless. Things only grew more complicated when Veronica Hayes entered the picture. Veronica was poised, elegant, and everything the media adored. At 29, she was a successful entrepreneur herself, and her relationship with Daniel quickly became public. She was kind, in her own way, but she didn't understand the chaos of children, especially children like Ethan and Ella. They need discipline, Daniel, she had said one evening, watching as Ella screamed and threw a dinner plate on the floor. They need their mother, Daniel replied quietly. Veronica sighed. Well, she's not here, and this situation, it's not sustainable. He knew she wasn't wrong, but knowing that didn't make it easier. That's when Maria entered their lives. Maria Lopez was 27, soft-spoken, and recently hired as a housekeeper. She came highly recommended, though her resume was simple. She needed the job desperately, and Daniel barely looked at her file before approving her hire. What stood out, though, wasn't Maria. It was a small boy who clung to her leg on her first day. This is my son, Leo, she explained gently. He's 3. I couldn't find childcare today. I'm so sorry. I can come back another day if... Daniel glanced at the boy. Big brown eyes, messy curls, silent but observant. It's fine, he said. Just keep him out of trouble. Maria nodded gratefully. Leo stayed close to his mother that day, quietly playing with a toy car in the corner of whatever room she cleaned. He didn't make noise, didn't demand attention, just watched, and he watched the twins. Ethan and Ella were in the middle of one of their episodes, crying, yelling, knocking over furniture. Veronica had retreated upstairs, frustrated. Daniel stood helplessly in the living room, his patience wearing thin. Stop it, he snapped, louder than he intended. The twins only cried harder. Maria hesitated in the doorway, unsure if she should intervene. But Leo did something no one expected. He walked forward, small, steady steps across the marble floor, clutching his little toy car. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood in front of Ella, who was sobbing uncontrollably, her face red and wet with tears. Then, quietly, he held out the toy car. For you, he said. Ella blinked. The crying didn't stop immediately, but it faltered. Leo didn't push. He didn't try to shush her or tell her to calm down. He simply sat down on the floor in front of her and started rolling the car back and forth. Ethan noticed. His cries softened, curiosity creeping in. Within minutes, both twins were sitting on the floor, watching Leo play. The house fell silent. Daniel stayed in disbelief. No raised voices. No commands. No threats. Just a 3-year-old boy playing. And somehow, for the first time in a year, Ethan and Ella weren't crying. Maria covered her mouth, tears forming in her eyes. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for him to. Don't. Daniel interrupted softly. He crouched down, watching the 3 children. Leo looked up at him, smiling shyly. Car go fast, he said. Daniel let out a quiet, almost broken laugh. Yeah, he said. Yeah, it does. Something shifted in that moment. Something small, but undeniable. For the first time in a long time, the Carter house didn't feel like a place filled with echoes of loss. It felt alive, and none of them knew yet just how much that small boy would change everything. The next morning felt different. Daniel noticed it immediately. Instead of waking up to screams echoing through the halls, he woke to silence, not the heavy, suffocating kind he had grown used to, but something lighter. Cautiously, he stepped out of his bedroom and made his way downstairs. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. Ethan, Ella, and Leo were sitting on the living room rug. They were building something together. Blocks, bright, colorful, scattered everywhere, stacked into what vaguely resembled a tower. Leo was at the center of it, carefully placing one block on top of another, his tongue peeking out slightly in concentration. Ella leaned closer. "That one goes here," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "No, here, it'll fall." They weren't arguing. They weren't yelling. They were talking. Daniel stood frozen. Maria was nearby, quietly folding laundry, her eyes just as wide with disbelief. "I don't understand," Daniel whispered. Maria shook her head gently. "Neither do I." Leo suddenly knocked over the tower. The blocks scattered everywhere. Daniel tensed, expecting chaos. Instead, Leo giggled. And then, miraculously, Ethan laughed. Ella followed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. But it was laughter. Daniel had forgotten what that sounded like. Veronica appeared at the top of the stairs, dressed impeccably as always. She paused when she saw the scene. "What is this?" she asked, confused. "Peace," Daniel replied quietly. Veronica frowned slightly. From them. Daniel didn't respond, because he was too busy watching something he thought he might never see again, his children being children. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Leo didn't try to fix the twins. He didn't discipline them or lecture them. He simply included them. If he played with cars, they joined. If he stacked blocks, they helped. If he sat quietly, they sat with him. And somehow, his calm presence became contagious. Maria tried to explain it once. "He doesn't know grief the way they do," she said. "But he knows kindness. And children, they understand that better than anything else." Daniel nodded, though he couldn't fully put it into words himself. He just knew one thing. For the first time in a year, his home felt like it was healing. But not everyone was comfortable with the change. One evening, Veronica pulled him aside. "This arrangement," she began carefully, "it's temporary, right?" Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" "The maid's child being here all the time. It's unconventional." "Is helping them," Daniel said simply. Veronica crossed her arms. "Or is creating dependency. What happens when they get attached? What happens when he leaves?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "They're already attached to someone who left," he said quietly. "That didn't exactly work out well." Veronica sighed. "Daniel, I'm just thinking long term." "So am I." She hesitated, then said, "This isn't the life I envisioned." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. "I don't think any of us envisioned this life," he replied. Upstairs, laughter echoed again. Leo's laughter, followed by Ethan's, then Ella's. Daniel turned toward the sound instinctively, and for the first time, he didn't feel helpless. He felt hopeful. It couldn't last forever. Daniel knew that, deep down, moments like these, fragile, unexpected, often came with a cost, and it arrived sooner than he expected. It started with something small. Maria approached him one afternoon, her hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "may I speak with you?" "Of course." She hesitated. I might need to leave, just for a while." Daniel's chest tightened. "Leave?" "My mother is sick," she explained. "She lives out of state. There's no one else to take care of her. And Leo, he would come with me." The words hit harder than Daniel expected. "Oh." Maria looked down. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." Daniel nodded slowly. "Of course. Family comes first." But inside, something shifted uneasily. That evening, he broke the news gently to the twins. "Leo might be going away for a little while," he said carefully. The reaction was immediate. No, Ella cried. Ethan's face crumpled. He can't go. Daniel swallowed hard. It's not forever. But he has to stay. Ella insisted, tears forming. And just like that, the calm shattered. The crying returned. The fear, the anger, everything Leo had soothed came rushing back. Daniel felt it like a punch to the chest. Upstairs, Veronica watched silently. Later that night, she spoke. This is exactly what I warned you about. Daniel didn't argue, because she wasn't wrong, but she also wasn't right, because what Leo had given them wasn't dependency. It was connection, and now they were about to lose it again. That night, Daniel sat alone in the living room, the same room where he had once watched his children cry uncontrollably. Now, the silence felt different again, heavy, uncertain, and for the first time in a long time, he realized he had something to lose. The next morning, Daniel made a decision, not as a billionaire, not as a businessman, but as a father. He found Maria in the kitchen, packing a small bag. "I've been thinking," he said. Maria looked up nervously. "Yes." "You shouldn't have to choose between your job and your family." She blinked. I don't understand." "I can arrange care for your mother," Daniel said. "The best doctors, a nurse, whatever she needs." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Carter, I can't accept." "You can," he said gently, "because this isn't charity." He paused. "It's gratitude." Maria covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "And Leo," she whispered. Daniel smiled softly. "He stays," he said, "as long as you both want to." At that moment, small footsteps echoed behind them. Leo, followed by Ethan and Ella. "Car?" Leo asked, holding up his toy. Ethan grinned. Ella nodded. And just like that, the house filled with laughter again. But this time, it wasn't fragile. It wasn't temporary. It was something deeper. Something chosen. Veronica watched from the doorway, and for the first time, she understood this wasn't about control, or perfection, or appearances. It was about love. Real, messy, unexpected love. Daniel glanced at his children, at their smiles, their laughter, their healing, and then at Leo, the small boy who had done what no one else could. He didn't fix everything, but he reminded them how to feel again. And sometimes, that's more than enough. The Carter house still stood tall on its hill, still admired, still impressive, but now it was also a home.